All right, so I'm Emily Heaton, and it's my pleasure to talk with you a little bit about Miscanthus. Before I jump in, how many people have heard of Miscanthus before this meeting invitation? Don't be shy. Okay, you all look very shy. So hopefully by the end of it, you feel a little bit more confident. Thank you, Corinne, getting some people online. This is also on Zoom, so I'll be trying to repeat any questions that you have and look at the chat as we're going here. So. All right, so please let me know if you can't see or hear anything. I work kind of deaf after working in ag in my career, and maybe other people are too, so don't be shy. I'm going to tell you a little bit today about our team at the University of Illinois and the work that we've been doing on Miscanthus. But really the point of this introduction is to give you a space to get some of the ground questions that you might have about Miscanthus out of the way before you hear the more industrially relevant talks. And to know that the University of Illinois is a third-party objective source of information about Miscanthus. So they don't get paid by Agrotech or BoardWorks, don't have that kind of affiliation, but a lot of the research we've done has helped pave the way for what they're doing today. So I'll talk about what is Miscanthus and why do we care, a little bit of its history in this state in particular, and I'm going to spend just an overview of Miscanthus agronomy and breeding and give just a touch on products that we are excited about from Miscanthus and are not necessarily on the display materials in the hallway, some advanced stage products. And then I'll leave you with a few websites for resources and have time for questions. So I wanted to start with an introduction about the hats that I wear so you kind of know the credibility of the team that's providing this information. So I have a research, teaching, and extension appointment at the University of Illinois, where I'm a professor in the Department of Crop Sciences, but I'm also an affiliate professor at Iowa State University, where I've been working since 2008, actually. Before that, I was with industry for a while.
Yeah. Izzy came around the corner of the garage as you were pulling out of the driveway, so she's in the house. Okay, I got her. Yep.
No, that's not Jen. Muting a few people if I can. Okay. So the picture that you're seeing in the background there is my parents' farm in Monticello, Illinois. And so we grew up on a cattle feedlot in central Illinois. And then in the farm crisis times, we bought 30 acres to make more money on less land. And we did it with management intensive grazing. So I've raised grass my whole career and thought a lot about high value products from less land. So managing for profit and managing for customers, not necessarily managing for a commodity a crop system. We have Miscanthus there in the background of the slide. I don't know if I can, let's see if I get my pointer working. But on the back of the hill is some Miscanthus that we use for bedding. Oh no, it doesn't work on LCD screens. So we've used it for turkey bedding for high value poultry that we sold to people in Chicago. So heritage breeds of the animals. Okay, so I get my money from a few different places. I have private philanthropic funding for regenerative ag initiatives in the Midwest, and that's the umbrella for everything I do. So I'm thinking about how do we increase the health and the wealth of Illinois ecosystems and communities. Everything for regenerative ag comes to me through that lens. Does it make us healthier? Does it make us wealthier? And so money comes from the USDA. I'm also the extension biomass specialist at the University of Illinois and at Iowa State University. And I also lead this thing called, I lead a theme within the Center for Advanced Bioenergy and Bioproducts Innovation at Illinois. This is a Department of Energy research center, one of 4 in the country, and it's helping to make some of the high value products, including working with the ag lab here. So because of all the exciting science and then the work that we've done, it's really led us to the conclusion that there's no good reason that Illinois is not capitalizing on the science that we've developed. And so we've recently started something called the Biomass Innovation Hub at Illinois to focus more on that translation space. So really complementing what's happening here at Distillery Lab. And so Corey Marks is in the back of the room. Sorry, Corey. He's our new business development lead for the Biomass Innovation Hub. And in the back of the room, we also have Talon Becker, who works with the extension team on the Biomass Innovation Hub, and we're really here to answer your questions. So just a quick word about our team. That center I mentioned is called CABI, the Center for Advanced Bioenergy and Bioproducts. It covers institutions across the United States, and it's actually one of the largest federally funded grants at the university. We also have teams that at our integrated bioprocessing research lab that make the products. So we grow the crops, we make the products, we do all the analyses, it's start to finish. And basically, we start to work on Miscanthus sooner than others, and most of the papers in the US are published from members of our team or people we've trained. So you're really sitting at sort of a hub of information for this crop. So what is this crop? I'm not going to belabor this, but what I'm trying to show you on this slide is, sorry, I figure out the pointer for this, is that Miscanthus giganteus is the crop that we're talking about today. And it is a naturally occurring hybrid of two other Miscanthus species. So this picture in the middle is Miscanthus giganteus freedom clone, also known as the standard clone. It's similar to what we've grown in Europe and what we also call the Illinois clone, but it's commercialized under the brand name Freedom of Agrotech. And it's a cross that occurred in nature between Miscanthus sacriflorus, which is a tetraploid, has 4 copies of each chromosome, and Miscanthus sinensis, which is a diploid, it has 2 copies of each chromosome. You have seen Miscanthus sinensis in almost every bank drive-through you've ever been to. It is a very common ornamental grass. You might have it in your yard, known as maiden grass, Chinese silver grass. It has a few different names. And in nature, those two cross, and I'll say a little bit more about that. But the cross that we use is sterile. It has 3 copies of each chromosome. They do not divide evenly in mitosis or in meiosis, and so you cannot make fertile gametes from this cross. And I'll say more about this in a second, but it's a key attribute of why this crop is so vegetatively productive. It's not putting energy in seed, and also why I feel confident recommending it without creating another invasive species problem in the US. We have North America's largest Miscanthus breeder. His breeding program is the oldest and the largest at Illinois, Eric Sachs, and he's developing new varieties that are even better than the standard clone that we're working with now. So there's a commercialization platform at Illinois that I think really provides some unique opportunity for Illinois to be the epicenter of a new crop genetics boom like we have been with corn and soybean. Okay, so a little bit about why we care about Miscanthus. Farmers like the fact that you plant the crop once, but harvest an annual crop of stems. So we just finished harvest at the energy farm a few weeks ago. We've been doing it in Iowa for the last couple months. It happens over the winter when the ground's frozen, when the crop looks like it does in that display we have out in the farm or the hall. But what you're looking at here is in this time of year, Miscanthus is coming up. Out in the hall, I've got some shoots that I dug up last night that are emerging. It closes canopy in around May, so that's when it's intercepting 95% of the radiation, and it very rapidly outcompetes weeds. So we really only spray herbicide once on this crop, once to twice in the first few years of growth. In the fall, it starts to senesce. It sends all of its nutrients back below ground to be used for next year into these rhizomes that I'll say more about in a minute. And then we harvest it anytime after that process occurs, after moisture gets down to below 18%. Because of this nutrient cycling and this shading of weeds, Miscanthus is very low input. It doesn't require regular pesticide applications, and my work for over a decade has focused on long-term fertility needs for the crop. We really don't see a response to nitrogen fertilizer beyond about 50 to 75 pounds per acre. But it does dramatically improve soil health and soil and water quality. It has consistent quality and stable yields. That's why we talk about Miscanthus when we're not talking about some other crops that you might be familiar with, or crops with plants that you might wonder why they're not crops, like Phragmites that we have so much of growing around anyway. A nice thing about Miscanthus as well is it has long-term and flexible contracting. Travis has negotiated many different types of contracts since I've been working with him, and I've never heard him say no yet, at least not when I've been in the room. So there's been a way to get things done that work for everybody. Miscanthus is also common in this area because it's excellent hunting habitat. If you have pheasants, if you like to kill deer, Miscanthus is popular on a lot of the hunting forums, and I can say more about that if you're interested. The people who buy Miscanthus like the fact that it's a consistent quality with stable yield, same things that farmers like. It's very flexible, so there's no choice between food or fuel with Miscanthus. We're making lots of different types of products, food and fuel and fiber that can go into feed products and other just fiber products. We're actually working with Victoria's Secret as one of our clients who's interested in sustainable fibers that are domestically produced. And again, long-term contracting. And there is public R&D for this. A lot of new companies don't have budget for research and development. Universities like ours have been successful in getting grants, but I should be clear, there is no dedicated program from the USDA like there is for our commodity crops. We maintain our own germplasm resources. So just a quick word about those germplasm resources. Where does Miscanthus come from? It is not native to the US. It is naturalized here. It's been sold here since the Vanderbilt family started selling it in the Biltmore catalog in the 1800s. So there's a fun history of Miscanthus if you're interested. And we actually have a great webinar on it a site I'll share at the end. But Miscanthus is from Asia, and its growing range is huge, all the way from almost to Siberia in Russia down to the tropics of the Asian islands. And it grows at alpine and cold conditions at high altitudes, and it grows in lowlands. So we have a huge range of environmental adaptation in the germplasm. And that's part of what every dot here I'm showing you in these maps is part of the parental populations of Miscanthus. So Eric Sachs has collected this from Russia, from China, in ways that are no longer repeatable. We could no longer collect this material given current geopolitical situations in the world. He houses this all at the University of Illinois in old crappy greenhouses and at our energy farm. So we are actively trying to develop and maintain resources to protect this germplasm, but this is the basis of future wealth because these are all the new varieties to be developed. Is Miscanthus invasive? I can categorically say that the answer to this is no for the standard clone, which is what we're talking about planting here. What I'm showing you in these pictures is two images. At the top and at the bottom are images of where we've planted Miscanthus into what's called a prairie pothole in a cornfield. You can kind of see a little bit of corn around the edges of the top image. And the center of these images is where Miscanthus didn't establish well. We planted this in 2019. What happened in 2019? Anyone, any of you in ag?
Wet.
It was wet. It's the wettest year historically recorded in Ames, Iowa, where this field is. We have the largest, I think, $6 billion in prevent plant acreage. It was a great year to test what happens if you grow Miscanthus in wet spots in cornfields. And so what you're looking at is at the bottom of the pothole there, this pothole's name is actually Hen. If it looks like a chicken to you, the people who started working on it named it Hen. And then we have been following each one of these plants over time. So 4 years later in 2025, we've drawn little orange boxes around each plant, and the plants haven't moved. This is actually one of the things we were curious about is can we fill in spaces if we have trouble with planting? This clone doesn't do that well. This is a trait we're considering for future clones as we want them to fill in some of these gaps. But for right now, we've erred very much on the side of caution that we do not want the crop to move where we plant. We are also developing non-shattering cultivars of the crop. As we make new varieties that have different traits, we might want in the future ones that can be planted by seed. And so at the university, we are developing that technology, but for the first time, we've made the trait where the seed doesn't fall off, which is called non-shattering, and it's considered one of the key principal steps to crop domestication. So we've domesticated this crop at a very short period of time. So what I want to show you on this, I don't expect you to go through this slide necessarily, but this is the first step of the timeline of when we started working on Miscanthus as a society other than an ornamental. It was the axis starts here in 1935 when Miscanthus was brought to Europe as an ornamental. And then in the 1970s, anyone remember 1973? Some of the same stuff we're talking about right now with oil. We had the oil embargo. There was a massive push both in Europe and the US to find alternative energy sources in a hurry. The US looked at crops like switchgrass and poplars. Europe looked at miscanthus. The red part of this line here, towards the end, this line shows the European investment and research into miscanthus. And then you'll notice the red line kind of goes up at the end, and that's when we have the first US field trials. That's when I started working on miscanthus. And this is now a shout out to the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. Do we have people in the room from there? Yeah, so we had our first grant funded from the CFAR, which was a ag research group that the state had at the time, and DECA funded, DCO funded my dad, who's on the left in that picture there, to plant the first on-farm trial of miscanthus. The next two guys are European researchers, then me, and then an Irish researcher. And so we brought the European experience together with the Illinois experience for our first trials. And then that launched a whole host of work that has built on that state investment. So we've had the first research trials published. We launched our first bioenergy degree program. We began a breeding program. We began long-term field trials. And then I met Travis in about 2013 when the University of Iowa, I was in Iowa at the time, started growing miscanthus for use in its power plant. Started our long-term fertility trials. And then Cabby really started digging into alternative uses for the crop. We opened pilot scale R&D facilities in Illinois, and then we were able to make huge breakthroughs technologically by developing the first gene-edited miscanthus and the first reference genome. So this is the first time we start treating this ornamental like a real crop. So that then brings us through the launching of tech hubs, new trials coming to market, and the development of our Biomass Innovation Hub. And then hopefully now this has helped pave the way for opportunities like a BoardWorks facility here in Peoria. This map tracks some of the same timeline, 2008 through 2025. But now on the y-axis, you're looking at the rough acreages of miscanthus across the country, and the colors denote different states. And so what I want you to take away from this figure is that there's a sharp increase in miscanthus acreage right after we publish those first yield trials of the crop. And that was in part because of the RFS2 coming out, the Renewable Fuel Standard, and we had a subsidy program for a while, the Biomass Crop Assistance Program that supported planting. However, there is sort of disillusionment as we discovered fracking in this country and cellulosic ethanol didn't come online. Power uses for the crop didn't materialize in the way, or the fuel uses of the crop didn't materialize as expected. So there was a decline in acreage. But we still realized that the crop was among the most productive that can be grown at central latitudes and started making more products from it. And that's the array of products you see outside. And acreage has started to steadily climb back up as we diversified from biofuels to also bioproducts. And so now we have a portfolio of markets that are appropriate for this crop, and acreage is expanding. So some quick words about agronomy. Travis is going to say more about this, but I recommend planting miscanthus on land that isn't corn and soybeans, but shouldn't be. So areas that underperform in corn and soybeans, meaning aren't providing you a good economic return on investment or have environmental sensitivities. That picture there in the bottom center shows some rhizomes. You can see more in the hallway. And the figure on the right shows some places where we have commercial fields integrated into corn and soybean fields. So it complements our commodities. You do need tillage and herbicide in the first year for sure, maybe some herbicide in the second year. And you don't normally harvest around here in the first year. We let the crop really get established and then harvest happen subsequently.
Could you use this as a alternative for like grass waterways?
Could you use this as an alternative for grass waterways? That's a great question, but the answer is no.
Okay.
The reason the answer is no is because our waterway grasses are designed to lay down. They are meant to conduct water down a smooth channel. What we do use miscanthus for is similar to the way we use prairies. And that, like, I don't know if you've seen prairie strips as a strategy in fields. We plant the stems perpendicular to the flow of water. So they make a terrace. They are nature's terrace. They are rooted terraces that are self-maintaining. They don't blow out. And then the water slows down as it gets through these stems, the sediment drops out of the water and the water is retained, usually in the strip, the nutrients are retained in the strip. Yeah, it's excellent for that purpose. Some major costs associated with crop production typically involve land and harvest costs. So what I'm showing you in this graphic, and again, these slides will be available. I apologize if they're hard to see on these screens, but the y-axis there is the percent contribution of cost to total costs. The red is the harvesting cost. The blue is the land cost. The green is actually the management cost. So how much it costs to apply fertility. You'll notice you don't see, the bottom of this figure are different fields and different years. And these are from mature fields in Eastern Iowa out of a recent publication we had. So we don't apply fertilizer necessarily every year, and they're low amounts. The purple bar there is the amortization of the planting costs. So because you only plant once, you can divide that over the lifetime of the crop. Now these harvest numbers are kind of big because these were our first early commercial fields, and we learned a lot in the harvesting, and I think that's been one of the big innovations that I've seen is ag engineering. The picture on the right shows this was a 600 horse harvester. We didn't have the 900 out that day.
750.
Yeah, so harvest technology is developing pretty rapidly, and this is from a couple last month in Cambridge, Maryland, on some of the highest yielding fields in the US. So I mentioned Miscanthus is a long-lived crop. And so now what I'm showing you in this figure is biomass on the y-axis. I apologize, this is in tons per hectare, not acres. But the mean yield that we see is about 7.5 tons per acre in our early fields. Now I think those yields are probably more appropriate to put in the 8 to 10 ton range because we've learned a lot. But what I want you to take away from this is over the lifetime of the stand, we see an increase up to around years 3 or 5. And then the crop stabilizes in yield. And so you get consistent yield over time. This red line in the figure is where we applied no nitrogen fertilizer to the field over this whole time. All the other lines are where we put anywhere from 100 to 400 pounds per acre on the field. We don't see a return from putting more than 50 to 75 pounds of nitrogen on the field. It doesn't increase yield, it doesn't increase profit. So we are currently working to understand how to keep this curve higher for longer, and that's a major focus of our research. There's some information about nutrient removals in Travis's handouts, but we have many papers on this subject too. I want to say briefly that Miscanthus improves soil health and builds soil carbon. This figure is complicated, but again, it's going over many years, 2008 to 2022, and each little squiggly line represents a growing season. If the line is above that dash line, where that arrow points up, it means that the cropping system is losing carbon to the atmosphere over time. This is measured with a technique called eddy covariance. It's very expensive and rigorous, and not many places in the world can do it. But the orange and green bars are corn and soybean. And you'll notice that even with good management practices, corn and soybeans are consistently losing carbon to the atmosphere. This is counter to some of the narrative that you hear about corn and soybeans because we're not using soil cores to measure this. We're using the breathing of the whole field. This is gas exchange to measure this. By contrast, the lines going down are Miscanthus, switchgrass, native prairie. They consistently put carbon in the soil every year. And that's how we got these soils, right? By using perennial plants like this. This is some data just matching that. The y-axis here are yield, biomass, and the green bars going up are above ground biomass, leaves and stems. The orange and darker colors on the bottom are below ground biomass, roots and rhizomes. And the thing to take away from this figure is that they're about the same. So as much biomass as you see above ground, it is matched below ground. And if you don't till the soil, it stays there. We see no difference between nitrogen fertilizer if we do this. We get the same kind of growth. And this is a kind of a schematic showing how that develops over time, going from year 1 there on the left, you have above ground biomass developing. And then on the bottom of that, those dark panels are where roots and rhizomes are developing. So again, this is from a recent paper that I'm happy to share. But what this means over time, and now I'm showing you this figure from a different paper that shows carbon content from cropland, like what we might talk about converted into Miscanthus. And we talk a lot about soil organic carbon as a way to change a carbon intensity score of a crop, for example, increase the value. But we're always talking about taking it from soil samples. And so what I want you to take away from the bottom of this figure where the line turns green, that's new carbon that the Miscanthus is putting into the soil system. But the Miscanthus also grows the soil. It's not just taking soil samples from the same soil, we're making new soil over time. And that those cycling arrows and those deep roots represent that the soil is healthier. The carbon is cycling faster through microbes. So plants grow, microbes eat it, microbes rot, release nutrients. And so the whole system cycles faster. This is just a cross section of some of those rhizomes buried in the soil with that litter layer on top. Look at that soil. Like that's well drained, gorgeous black dirt.
It's like
that's
someone like
protected.
North Carolina.
Yeah, we're not. I think it's time we stopped shipping our soil downstream and start keeping it here. You can plant Miscanthus on marginal land. As I said, prefer to plant Miscanthus on corn and soybean land that shouldn't be in corn and soy, like me standing in this field here. This is next to a prairie pothole where we planted corn. The Miscanthus is clearly fine. So Miscanthus can tolerate periodic flooding. It can withstand periodic drought. Better conditions give better yields. It's not alchemy, but it is a resilient crop, and we are breeding it to be even more resilient. We do have it growing on coal mine reclaimed land. I know that's important for the Peoria area. There are examples of that in Kentucky and Ohio. So it's better than other things in those places. I want to mention too that we don't talk about wind erosion much around here, except in recent years we've had some problems, right, with traffic related fatalities from dust storms, things that we never really thought we'd see in our lifetimes, honestly, right? This is a picture from my research class in Iowa showing the neighbor's soil now in my field. This is after one windy day near Christmas. We know how many windy days we get right now. No one's ever measuring this. This is not included in soil carbon measurements, but that's now my dirt. It was my neighbor's dirt and now it's my dirt, and it's the good dirt. Miscanthus also improves water quality. This is showing nitrate leaching on the y-axis. The bars are different years. So 2008 through 2012 with corn, soybeans, Miscanthus, switchgrass, prairie. This is in Illinois. And the thing to take away from here is that Miscanthus leaching was high in the first year when we tilled the field. That's because our soils are rich. We had microbial breakdown of organic matter that released nitrogen, and it drained because the Miscanthus was small. As the Miscanthus grew, nitrogen leaching drops to zero. The root systems develop, the crop absorbs moisture, absorbs that nitrate, and even when we fertilize it, this figure is showing that the nitrate leaching in mature Miscanthus is usually about 70% of what we see about 30% of what we see in a corn system. So if you want to improve water quality, this is the way to do it. And this last figure is showing you changes in actual water holding capacity. The green bars are the water holding capacity of soils that have been grown under Miscanthus. The yellow bars are under maize. We change the aggregate structure when we grow this crop, so the soils can hold more moisture, buffering them from those drought periods and allowing them to be better sponges when it rains too much. So Jean-Sebastian and Travis are going to talk to you about bedding and boards perhaps, but in Cabby, we are making other high value compounds. And this is, I think, a place where we're excited to work with Peoria. These are some base molecules that can turn into a lot of the products that we grow. Travis mentioned Boeing did a test flight with Miscanthus-based fuel, but they're also looking at Miscanthus to make the acrylic for the windows. So you can make stuff other than just fuels out of this. How is that done? This is a schematic flow chart this paper does include Bruce Dean from the Peoria lab here, the ag lab, showing you harvest the crop. You have field processed material. This is shredded Miscanthus, so like might come out of a chopper. We then mill it. That reducing the size of it is a key factor to make it smaller. And then we start extracting stuff out of it by mixing it with water. And then in this case, I'm showing you that we've extracted natural pigments. These are appropriate for food-based dyes. And following the Making a Healthier conversation, this is a large market to replace fossil-based food dyes. We have some samples of that out in the hallway. But this is the same way we make sustainable aviation fuel out of it, the way we make all those high-value compounds. Grind it up, wash it, and process it with microbes. So in conclusion, we're kind of completing the puzzle. There's a picture of interlocking features of Miscanthus that just continue to make it seem like it's a good fit for Illinois. And Illinois really, in my opinion, should be working harder to extract the health and wealth benefits of this crop since we helped develop it. I'd love to see us make good on it. We planted it on our farm. It's worked well. There's a host of resources for you, and there's some fact sheets in the back. I put the link to my Iowa State fact sheets. I'm still updating them at Illinois, but we have lots of other resources. So I can take a couple questions now if you like. I know I don't want to take too much time away from Travis and John Sebastian.
I was curious about wind effects, if like derecho winds, if you've seen any effects.
That's a great question. Yeah, so the derecho was worse in Iowa than it was here. The derecho of 2020.
8 million acres, I think.
Yeah, 8 million acres. So yeah, ours did not go down. I have some pictures from ice storms too, where it's touching, the stems are touching the ground. It's just got a beautiful arc. So the flexibility of the stem is a key feature here. We want it to grind, stiff enough to grind into small particle sizes, but flexible enough not to lodge. And so we've had good luck with derecho. We've had good luck with ice storms. We've run into some challenges when it grows too fast, too soon. So sometimes with our fertility management, or if it's been really dry and we get a big rain, but what this happened actually this last year for us, it grows up, kind of gets a little bend where it gets weak, and then it starts growing up again. So it's a bear to walk through, but the harvester goes through just fine.
And this may be addressed later on, but I'm curious as to, you said there's no programs or funding for this, is that?
Everything is soft funded, so this is not considered a specialty crop by the USDA. It's not considered a commodity crop by the USDA. It's not considered a conservation planting option by the NRCS. So right now, everything is sort of outside our typical government programs. I think Illinois has an opportunity to develop some state level programs, and we've seen that happen in Iowa, in Maryland, Virginia, I think North Carolina.
Pennsylvania.
So the states that are getting ahead are creating some protections as a crop.
So as a previous lobbyist, how would we get involved in doing some of that?
Yeah, I think you take from
Advocacy.
what other states are doing and try to share it here locally. It seems to be coming from state level programs, not federal level. I think as our acreage increases, we'll get more federal buy-in. But in states like Maryland and Pennsylvania and Virginia, they actually pay farmers to plant it for nutrient reduction.
Right.
And they're getting payments north of CRP just to grow it. Mm-hmm. So, we know nutrient runoff is a big issue here in Illinois, and we would like to share that Miscanthus could be a solution to that. And farmers that plant it in that respect really should take advantage of some programs.
Last question, the USDA department here knows nothing about this because I brought it to their attention. So
the local department
and my regional office out.
Okay.
Yeah, because I asked them about this. I was pretty excited about it. They knew nothing about it.
Okay, thanks for letting me know that. We have gone, when the market seemed to decline, we stopped telling people about Miscanthus. We kind of just decided to focus on examples of success. Before we try to tell other people we should do it, we've been doing the research to prove it if we can do it. But we'll be reaching out. Thank you. You had one?
Oh, I was just wondering if the Illinois Department of Agriculture has been contacted, and are they interested in developing a program, or perhaps in conjunction with the NLRS tenants?
Yeah, so yes, but again, I think similar to the previous question, we could do more. What we found works best in states is that when farmers and industry are interested and they start asking for programs, that's when things happen. So we have to have examples of success that make other people want to try it. When researchers say you should, that's not a good strategy. We shouldn't have to convince anyone to do anything, right? These things should speak. So with that, I will turn it over to Travis. Let me see if I can get you set up here.
Okay. Thank you. Man, I'm gonna have a lot of explaining to do to my wife when I get back because she's gonna say, "What'd you do all day?" And I said, "I was spinning at a distillery." I was at a distillery last night too, here locally, so I've learned a lot about whiskey production in Peoria. But this is my first time to Peoria, and it's a wonderful downtown. You guys have a great community here, so it's just been a pleasure being here and getting to interact today with everyone.
Sorry, it's all under construction.
This is nothing compared to North Carolina. So,
Progress.
but they had a baseball game going on last night and a lot of foot traffic downtown. So we can see everybody's well connected here in the community, and we hope to be a part of it. So I'm going to share a little bit about the production side of Miscanthus, but really I wanted to start out with our purpose of being here. We want to grow about 2,000 acres of Miscanthus in the community. And we want to do that in a way that the farmer is profitable and the manufacturer is profitable. So this opportunity is really a connection of parties. And so it's great to have the name of this event called Agrotech Connect, because that's exactly what we're here to do. We're here to connect farmers with industry. And before I get into talking about how we do that, I'll say there's been a lot of crops that come to market that have been unsuccessful. And a lot of that is because there is no connection, right? Folks think there's a market, they plant a crop, they take a risk, and then at the end of the day, the market doesn't turn out to be what they expected. And so I think that's been a challenge for a lot of new crops, and we're trying to really solve for that. After the meeting, if you're interested and want to learn more about what Miscanthus looks like on your farm, there's a grower sign-up sheet here that you can fill out. We ask for farm locations. You don't need to put that there. We'll contact you. We'll have independent conversations with you about your production, how you see a fit for Miscanthus. But that's really the purpose of why we're here. We're here to find farmers to grow the crop. Additionally, we've got a piece of information back there about how to grow Miscanthus, and I'm going to go through that now, but that'll give you a chance to read up on it and learn more about how we produce Miscanthus. So I want to talk about our company. I love this photo. The photographer who took it, she just nailed it with that photo there. But really, our company is an ag company and technology company focused on the development of perennial energy grasses. Perennial energy grasses are considered carbon negative. They protect water, soil, and air. So they're a fantastic crop to grow. They've got all these sustainability attributes. Emily went over a lot of those about how they improve your soil health. They create new job opportunities for farmers. It's a new crop with new revenue from the social side of things. And then from the economical side of things, this is more of a steady return. This is not a return of 1 year you're going to make a lot, next couple of years you may not make anything. This is more of a staple type return opportunity crop. But having said that, and all these great things, I think somebody just asked the question, I never heard of Miscanthus, right? Well, that's because it takes markets, right? No one's going to grow this crop unless there's some type of program that incentivizes you to grow it, or there's actually a market that will purchase it and provide some revenue. So we've been around since 2010. I'll give you some history, but one of the things I learned very on is farmers are the toughest people to sell to, especially a crop you can't even pronounce, right? But what gets farmers excited is revenue opportunities, right? If they can make money, I think a farmer will grow just about anything if it's profitable. But we really need these markets to be able to purchase the product and pull it through for the growers. So that's where our company comes in. We're trying to make that connection. So early on in our company, we started out in 2010. We focused more on the production side. This crop is very difficult to propagate if you don't have the right technology. So we had to develop a system where we have certified nursery farms, we have technology to dig the crop, process the crop, and then we needed a mechanical way to plant it because we want to plant it at low cost and we want to have a mechanical process to be able to scale it. So over the first probably 5 years of our company, we worked on that production side to really get that nailed down so that when we went to market, we could assure with farmers that they were going to hit those yields that Emily shared earlier. Because if you don't have a proven production system, it's really hard to get the right revenue flowing through to the farmer. So we focused there in the beginning on the production side. And then since then, we started developing different uses for Miscanthus and different market opportunities. And I'll get more into this, but The one that really is kind of the bedrock of our company is livestock bedding for the poultry industry. And I knew nothing about poultry production in the beginning, but when I first was talking to Europeans about growing Miscanthus and how they were utilizing it in Europe, I had a guy there tell me you can make double selling it for chicken bedding as you can for biofuels. And so that was the emphasis and the reason we got going on that front. But what I found since then is poultry is an on-farm operation where you can connect with a farmer to grow this crop and use in their own production system. And so it really solved the questioning about what is this crop? When a grower actually can see it in their own production system, then they start to gravitate and want to utilize it. I think it was a great starter market for us because I think we would have ran into a lot of challenges with farmers if we were trying to grow it for a biofuel company that was really trying to get off the ground. It was a new type of industry, whereas poultry has been kind of a bedrock in agriculture. So it's been a fantastic market for us to build on. And then you can see some of these other uses. So we're working on a company now in North Carolina, Peoria, where they take the poultry bedding and use manure. They make renewable natural gas and fertilizers with the product. And then we have a table out front here that shows some of the molded fiber products from Genera, among others. And then finally, we're here to talk about BoardWorks because BoardWorks is a real opportunity right here in Peoria. Again, this is I just wanted to emphasize that since 2010 here, we have expanded production across the U.S. We're now in our 17th state with Kentucky added to the list. But we have a real good understanding of yield and conditions that drive production for Miscanthus through these different locations across the U.S. What we've learned is this is kind of the upper limit of production with the current commercial cultivar because of the coldness in the soil temperatures in the winter. The further north you get, you can experience some winter kill. And then down here at the south, under about the I-20 corridor, as you get further south, Miscanthus really doesn't go dormant in the winter. And so that prevents a lot of high productivity going south. The best place to grow Miscanthus is kind of this region across the U.S. Some of those yields Emily shared were from this location up in Iowa. I think with the rainfall in this area and the soil conditions, I think we'll see even higher yields here. Over in Maryland, we have a great climate there. We've seen as much as 13 tons per acre on production in that location. But when you look at that, hardiness zone for crops, this region right here is probably the best to grow Miscanthus. I want to talk about the production system because that's a question we get from a lot of farmers. Well, if I want to grow it, how do I plant it? How do I maintain it? We will work with farmers in a lot of different ways. We provide the equipment and the root stock. We can also provide a turnkey service where we actually come in and do all the planting for the farmer if he prefers. If the farmer wants to provide equipment and just wants us to send in the planter, we can do that. We can provide the expertise to help the farmer plant. So we're really, to Emily's point, we're customizable with how we work with farmers. Emily covered the genetics. I won't go into that, but the main thing I want to emphasize here on the genetic side, please don't go buy Miscanthus from somebody off the street that doesn't have a certified farm. We all know about seed, seed quality and things like that. We go to great lengths to grow certified nursery farms because we want to ensure the states realize that we're planting a sterile type. You don't want to go sourcing Miscanthus for folks who don't have certification. Emily brought up some of the concerns around invasiveness and those type of things. So we take a quality approach in our process. The planting technology. So we set it up really like a turf grass farm. Up here, you're probably not familiar with Bermuda grass production, but down in the south, warm season grasses are planted by rhizome. So on turf grass nursery farms, you dig the crop. We run it through a processing system, and then we create a uniform plantlet cutting, and then we move that over into the planter, and then we plant that in a furrow with a 2x2 spacing. This planter was developed by us. So I could go into, if somebody wants a side story on how we developed that planter, I'm happy to share it with you. But today we have a potato company called Sputnik. They're a division of Grimme that will manufacture these planters for us. And so over the last couple of years, we continue to innovate. Emily's been pressuring us to come up with a no-till system. We haven't done that yet, but it's something that we're working on. So let's go into the decision-making process on, what you should be thinking about when you want to establish Miscanthus. So first thing you want to do is kind of scope out your land, do some planning around your operation. Every farm operation is diverse in terms of the crops that they utilize, the locations that they go into. We're going to look at your soil type. We like high water holding capacity soils. Miscanthus loves water. It will produce. I think that's one of the main drivers in yield is just access to groundwater. So we like soils that have high water holding capacity. We have planted on some highly erodible land. We would say, we kind of like to say don't go over 6%, but I think you could go up to 12%. From what I've learned about this geography, everything kind of east of here is flat. Everything kind of west of here has some rolling hills. In Iowa, we've planted on some rolling hills, and happy to take a look at that. But that is something in your decision-making you want to think about. And then in terms of what do we follow? We like following soybeans best because soybeans is just less residue on the ground. So we can come in right after a soybean operation with very little tillage and get our crop in. If it's corn, we got to think about how we deal with the residue. Maybe you have a fall tillage operation just to break down your corn stover before the spring planting. But we want to make sure we put a right plan and right process together for you on what crops we follow. One of the biggest challenges here, I would say in the I states in general, is just the mentality of how you prepare land, right? You guys have done a tremendous job on no-till, strip-till, anything to preserve the soil from a tillage standpoint. That's great for seed crops, but for Miscanthus, that makes it very difficult. We do have to do tillage. Our crop is planted with 3 inches of cover in a furrow. So we'll come in. We like to keep the tillage operation right in front of the planting. The planting is slow. We plant about 15 to 25 acres a day with the planter. So there's no reason to get way out in front with your tillage. You can stay right in front of the planting operation with your tillage, keep your soil protected until we get that crop in the ground. But we do have to do some tillage practices. And a lot of times that's done in the spring when you have wet conditions. And so that's one thing I've had to try to balance working with farmers in this region is, in their, thought process, I guess, wet land is often not worked because of the compaction that you can go through with seeds. This crop, there's not a compaction concern. We actually want to plant it and compact it. There's no air pockets and that rhizome can pop up. So we'll work with the farmer on how best to do the tillage practices. On the planting, so this is unique as well. We have a planting window from October to May. Obviously winter months here aren't ideal to plant here. But when ground's unthawed, we can put Miscanthus into the ground. And ideally, we like to beat the 52-degree soil temp because that's when Miscanthus comes up. So we've planted in Iowa in late February and March, even when the ground was allowable to get on and work. But yeah, you can plant Miscanthus from fall to spring, just like a tulip bulb, put that root in the ground. That's the best way for it to be insulated and stay preserved. And then it'll just pop up right in the spring for the season. The other reason that we like to plant early is because, if you're getting up against this May date, right, and you're in April, now you're in the weed season, right? So if we can get in front of that and get the crop in the ground earlier, then we don't have to compete against the weeds as much. So early planting is what we really like to look for there with Miscanthus. The planter, I think I mentioned 2x2 spacing. That planter has a press wheel behind it, so it'll just create some ridges after we plant. So if you're on the highly erodible land or slope land, like Emily mentioned, we'll plant perpendicular to the runoff, and then those ridges that the planter creates will help break up any kind of soil erosion. Emily shared some of these photos earlier, but this is just kind of shows you what you're looking at in terms of establishment. When farmers see this picture, they get freaked out because they're used to corn coming up in a perfect row at a perfect time and it all looks uniform. Grass is really different. So it's going to come up sporadic. You're going to have a lot of weed pressure. We've even seen a spring planting where you actually are still getting emergence in like August on that first year planting. So it's not going to be like you're used to in terms of looking uniform, looking great. There is going to be some spottiness to it, but you only have to deal with that for 1 year. Once it's grown in, every year after that, it's usually the first crop out of the ground to get going, and then it completes complete cover. So this is a picture from Iowa over in Conesville. So look at where corn's at, and look at where Miscanthus is at. So that just shows you how quickly it comes out of the ground and grows ahead of corn. And then during the middle of the summer, during the season, here you got corn crop, you got Miscanthus, so they're even in height, kind of growing together. They're both C4 crops. So we know that in the summer, when temperatures get north of 98 degrees, Miscanthus will start to shut down like corn does, right? It's just protecting itself from the heat. So we see a real early growing season, kind of a hibernating summer, and then we see a fall season of growth. What's pretty about Miscanthus is in the fall, because a lot of people have the question about appearance. It's like an ornamental. It puts up a flower. The flower comes out in September, looks beautiful in the fall, and then by the time you get the winter, it dries down to about 18% just right before harvest. So that kind of gives you the visual of what it looks like during those seasons. And I want to talk about how we're going to supply BoardWorks with our fiber here locally. So there's a couple different ways, two different systems for Miscanthus. So this system, we have some customers that want a baling system. And in a baling system, we come in, we mow it with a disc-spine mower, windrower, and then we'll come back and pick it up with baling equipment. So it can be square baled, it can be round baled. Most of your industry folks who process large volumes of biomass, they like the square bales because you can get more on a trailer for shipping. And there's some safety benefits to it at the plant where you don't have round bales rolling around and things like that. So a lot of our customers in the industrial industry will want it in bales. The customer Genera that's doing the pulp product out there with the plates and bowls, they take it in baled form. But for biofuels and for a lot of these processes that I'm working with companies with, we like to do the forage chopping process. We feel like it's a lower cost to harvest. It's more efficient process, and then it also produces a much cleaner finished product. In a baling system like this, I want to say they're averaging between 15 ton an hour on a baling operation when you look at actually cutting it, handling it, moving the bales to the edge of the field. Whereas in a forage chopping process, the 1,200 horsepower forage choppers that we utilize this year are pushing over 100 ton an hour through those machines. So you can move over a lot more ground with a forage chopper than you can with a baling process. But when we forage chop, well, let me just hit on this subject. Somebody asked a question. I think it was a farmer caught me out front and said, how do you harvest it in January? Well, we harvest in January in Iowa, and we actually harvest in February and March in Iowa. And, the weather is different during different seasons. You may have a really, really cold day where you just can't get out there. You may have a snow day, but as you can see here, there's snow on the ground, and we're still able to get across that. We actually like this harvest because when ground's frozen, you're not rutting your fields up. You can get across it really, really easy. The winter has a lot of moisture in the atmosphere and air, and so the crop, it dries down properly, but you're dealing with a wetter season versus a drier season. So in terms of just managing the crop, it's a little bit easier from that standpoint. So harvest, we've proven, we can cut it here from January to probably mid-April in this area. But once it's chopped, how do we manage it? You can manage it by doing on-farm storage and traditional silage bags. This is a great way to store it, a low-cost way where you're taking it out of the field, you're keeping it right on the field, you're not incurring any more cost. You keep it right there, put it in a large agricultural bag. These bags, if you know anything about the silage industry, they can go 500 feet long and store 300 tons in them. They actually pack the chopped product into the bag. So that's one way to do it. The other way to do it is just put it in a bulk shed. So this is our partner up in Maryland. He built some pole barns and he just stages it. This is about 22 feet in this building. He just piles it up, brings it out, puts it on a walking floor trailer straight to our customer. So that just shows you a couple of different techniques we can use of how we field load it and then get it to our customer. And then I want to go back on the, well, I'm missing a slide here. I added it the other day, but not to worry. So Emily shared a little bit about the work they're doing at the university on the molecule side and changing Miscanthus to make different products with it. And I think it's important to just emphasize that happens today, right? Think about another crop from Southeast Asia. Everybody, when they hear about non-native and they think about Southeast Asia, remember soybeans are from Southeast Asia too, right? And there's 88 million acres of them now in the U.S. So the fact that it's a non-native, I don't think that's really something you should be concerned about, because really the crop provides all these added benefits, right? From soil health, soil erosion protection, things like that. But we got to deconstruct it and we got to make some different products out of it. And so these are some of the companies we're working with today. We do a lot. I mentioned livestock bedding with poultry. So we work with companies like Tyson, Farbest. If you know a livestock producer that's growing chickens or turkeys, more than likely we've worked with them, and more than likely they'll approve the use of the product in their operation. So that's an immediate outlet and an opportunity for it. We're working with a company over in Iowa that makes world's best kitty litter. They use corn cobs for that operation. They're looking at Miscanthus as a replacement to corn cobs. We sell retail horse bedding that's packaged in bagging systems and distributed through farm and feed stores and others. You can buy this online as well. These are some of the biofuel opportunities. So we got our fuel pellets out there on the table, but University of Iowa has been burning Miscanthus in an energy pellet for 12 years now and producing renewable energy with it. Alder has produced aviation fuel. And then we talked a little bit about the packaging and opportunities around molded fiber products and just tableware. These are actually Miscanthus forks, spoons, and knives, which are all 100% organic and compostable. So these are all fabulous uses for Miscanthus, but we've got to, again, connect these industry partners with the farmers. So what you're going to hear here in the next presentation is Sebastian's going to present an opportunity on BoardWorks. BoardWorks is a real opportunity here locally for Peoria. We've identified a site that may work for our plant. And with that 2,000 acres of production, we can produce about 800,000 4x8 sheets of Miscanthus-based composites that could be used in building materials, automotive applications, among others. So I'm going to turn it over. I guess I'm free to answer a couple questions before Sebastian comes on, but I'll turn it over to him.
Hey, Travis, I got a quick one. So when you were talking about planting, I just want to clarify, you said 2x2. What did you mean when you said 2x2?
2 foot by 2 foot spacing. So our planters are set up with 2 foot rows. So that equal spacing we like. What we have learned is that you don't want to miss a great establishment opportunity with Miscanthus. So we don't plant it one time and be successful. So we actually plant 3 root cuttings per plant location. And so if one route doesn't come up, there's two more there that will. And so that ensures high quality establishment. Typically, we get about 98% success rate on our establishment. So
The harvesting and baling equipment, is that proprietary or specialized, or is that?
not at all. There's a few adjustments you might have to make, particularly around the baling system. With as tall as Miscanthus is and as stiff, you have to have a push bar out in front of it, kind of laying it down to mow it properly. But yeah, all standard equipment can be used. On the forage chopping side, we use Claas, John Deere, New Holland. We've tested with most of the manufacturers.
Well, I'm not as polished as Emily or Travis. I'm the managing director of BoardWorks Biocomposites.
You want me to pull your presentation up?
Sure.
I think it's
Right, too.
is it next, Kathy?
Okay, no, I can do it.
But I'm here really to talk about what we make from this Miscanthus. We're an advanced material company based in Florida. We have a pilot plant in Edgewater and New Smyrna Beach. We basically receive and I have to tell you that we come from the marine industry, our engineers. We were handling marine waste, fiberglass, epoxy conduit, very difficult carbon fiber type chemistry and products. And we wanted to have a purpose-grown fiber portfolio of products because that's the direction of where materials are going. We know that the planet has sold itself on hemp and the benefits of that plant. And it's a very good one, but we've also studied Canaf, Miscanthus, bagasse, flax, jute, so many others. And none have the life cycle analysis and benefits, the yield and the benefits for farming than Miscanthus. And that's how we connected with Emily and her team at the University of Illinois. They introduced it to the United States. And we connected with Agrotech, which is the largest Miscanthus grower in North America with their 16 clusters. And our business model is not to have one giant OSB type plant in Florida, but to have these smaller regional plants 75 miles proximate from where the biomass is grown. That's what we're doing here in Peoria. We have hopefully the support of CABI and what the University of Illinois is doing. They're planning a 10,000 acre cluster to grow in this area. Agrotech has fantastic connections and resources already developed in Iowa that is at least going to feed a potential facility here from the start. But ideally, it's in cultivating these new relationships with local farmers that will help us build the at least 2,000 acres that we need per line to support manufacture of these products. And that's what I brought here. And I think that we can show. I was told that we have to be out of this room by 10:30. So I'm going to get right to the heart of what we manufacture. This is what we make. This is basically an OSB panel substitute. We actually are in with the ICCES for this panel to be a structural sheathing certified product for the International Building Code and International Residential Code. We're on the panel for the June 23rd meeting. And once that acceptance criteria is passed, we will be the first plant-based panel in the world. Now, what does that mean? It's all of the other panels that you know that they're building with, all these homes are forestry products. They come from trees. This is from something that comes out of your field. And that's what the difference is. So I have a booth outside with lots of panels for you to come and feel them and see them. But I brought a few examples to show you. That's a straight 1/2-inch panel. This is a tongue and groove version for subflooring that we plan on making here in Peoria. This is a lower density insulation type product or a batting product. Another version of the same material. We get the same material for them. And this is a really interesting, very thick, and I'll leave it and let you guys pass it around. It's a very heavy, it's a composite that blends the Miscanthus with decommissioned wind turbine blades that we get from Fairfax, Iowa. Regen fiber, that's a huge land management, waste management problem. These decommissioned wind turbine blades are supposed to last 20 years. They're lasting really between 8 to 12, about 10 years. And What do you do with it? It's a very complicated construct of balsa wood and fiberglass and carbon fiber and epoxy, lots of very difficult chemistry that doesn't recycle well, but it chops up and it blends and works in our process very well, especially blended with Miscanthus, a purpose-grown fiber, where you have a cladding type product. This is basically a James Hardy substitute that is growing in your field and really solving a waste management problem. So these are the types of products that we're looking to manufacture here in Peoria. There's a plant that happens to have a core press made in Germany that is at the heart of our continuous board technology that we're looking to see if we can convert effectively. And we hope to create a lot of local jobs and local opportunities. One of the other things that we're looking for, and I appreciate the introduction, is local markets for our products. We have relationships. Look, we get, this is what I understand. I'm a business guy. I'm a finance guy from way back. Chicago Board Options Exchange. Farmers don't plant crops without contracts. Contracts don't exist without processing. Processing doesn't exist without end markets. We need those relationships with those furniture manufacturers that exist here in the Midwest, with the RV builders, the EV vans for delivery that are being made in Elkhart, Indiana. All of these materials and panels work in those applications. We're not just looking for structural panels to build houses. I mean, that is basically competing with OSB, and it's a very low price market. We work on specialty fire rated chemistries to work with tier 1 automotive manufacturers. We're working right now on a panel. It's a cover for a minivan that everybody knows the brand. I'm not allowed to say it, but it's basically a cover for the spare tire. It's right now made out of plywood with a laminate and paper, but they love the idea of using a purpose-grown fiber grown in the Midwest. That panel that is working its way around is the transom for a Lund boat. You know, Brunswick is a huge customer of ours. We do it for Sea Pro. We're talking with, you know, many boat manufacturers. So it's, a gentleman mentioned the cabinetry industry around here. We know that in the Midwest, there are some big cabinet manufacturers. This is the perfect material for that. Developing those kind of relationships where it is proximate from the farm to the processing plant, right to their location. This is about domestic supply chain reshoring. You know, that's what we're all about, you know, and only with Miscanthus, only with the economics of the work that University of Illinois has done, that Agrotech has developed in their very efficient planting systems and all the guidance that they give and harvesting and whatnot. It's only with this kind of cooperation that you can get a company like mine to build an advanced manufacturing facility in a place like Peoria and support domestic production again. So that's what we're here to talk about. I'm here outside to answer any questions. Chris, did I make
You're good, great.
perfect on time? And I didn't even talk about any of my slides. So they're available.
They'll be available online and
How do I flip through them? I'll just show you some pretty neat stuff. If
I think you got it right here.
right there.
Yeah.
I'll just flip through there. This is what you'll see outside. You know, we have a lot of, this is all of our natty board lines, the fiberglass. Well, what I was going to show you, well, I'll show you outside is the panagrass. It's basically the Miscanthus blended with hemp, a small amount. And we do that for a company in California that makes these kits for accessory dwelling units. They named their company after hemp, but they recognize the benefits of Miscanthus. So we have to blend a little bit of hemp in there just so that they can use it in their hemp abode, you know, style or named company. This is the company that, it's a Swedish company that manufactures in Germany that has a line here in Peoria that we're looking to repurpose to manufacture these continuous boards. This is basically going to operate 24/7. It is continuous. Great jobs, advanced manufacturing jobs. But this is our technology. Our our partnerships with Agrotech and HIPCO, of course. This is our advanced manufacturing. You know, the building materials world, the certification that I'm talking about, it's not a small opportunity. This is a $40 billion a year business for advanced engineering panels. Guys, that's bigger than the entire music industry in the United States. Think about that. Every year, that's the value of the panels being built. And then we can build it here in Peoria, in Huntsville, Alabama, in High Point, North Carolina. This is our little pilot plant in Florida where we're making the transoms. That is actually a hemp abode home and our panels on the exterior.
Where's that being built?
Grass Valley, California. It's just outside of Sacramento.
So Sebastian, we got about 10 minutes for questions.
Any questions?
If you align the fibers, can you make an LVL-like product for like structural beams?
We can, and we're working on that. It's not the highest priority, and there's LVL is it's a great product, no question about it. We were really more focused on the flat panels. Is really what.
Yeah. University of Tennessee present our CAMX award that we got with the fiberglass. University of Tennessee made an I-beam out of Miscanthus and won an award at the same event. So there's been some research done on it, and we're working with some of those folks about how we might build on BoardWorks to make other products, but it can certainly be done.
An interesting application at UTK also with Dr. Wang. We're working with, he has a sargassum seaweed foam. It's a fire-resistant foam made from that seaweed problem that's all over the Caribbean. It's a structural insulated panel, an SIP panel, with our fiberglass, our Miscanthus with the decommissioned wind turbine blades in a very thin panel on both sides, sandwich, for the construction industry. That's a real interesting STTR type grant that we're applying for right now.
I don't want to cut this question short. Yes, go ahead.
From a landowner's perspective, what's a minimum viable size of land that you're looking for locally, and what are the expected capital upfront costs for the grower? Or
so that's a great question. So one of the things that we're going to do with this project is we're actually going to include the establishment cost in the project. So farmers aren't going to have to pay to establish the crop. That'll take a lot of the issue off the farmer. One of the things that's challenging with Miscanthus is typically it's $1,200 to $1,500 an acre to plant it. And then you really got to get to year 3 to get to your mature yield. So with that establishment cost, it's a long horizon to get your financing back. So we're just going to include that in the project. That way that takes it off the farmer. And then on the growing side, we can just focus on the income with the fiber production. But in terms of quantity, we always say 50 acres or more. And then we want to
parcel size, just making sure people online can hear in the recording.
Yeah, 50 acre parcel size. And we would like it all contiguous. Like I know some folks might consider putting us in as a buffer, but it's not efficient to plant buffers and harvest buffers. Not saying that we can't do that. It's just that the economics might change around that type of application. But 50 would be minimum, and we want to try to source it within a 30-mile radius of Peoria. The further you get out, the more logistical costs you get. So we're really trying to target within 30 miles.
I just want to add that when I talk to furniture manufacturers, domestic furniture manufacturers, what really attracts them about our panels and about this solution is that we can contract with farmers on a long-term basis. Forestry goes up and down in cycles and prices affected by international events. But a perennial crop like this, once you've established that field, you're not planting it every year, you're not fertigating it, you're not doing any of it, you're just harvesting it. And that's where, we can come in here and say, hey, we've got this major furniture manufacturer. They know that they're going to be building beds and shelves and cabinets or whatever. And what appeals to them is 3 years, 5 years, 7 years of stable pricing. And that's why we can come to you and say, hey, we are going to guarantee that we're going to buy this product from you at a fixed price. And it's a fair price. That's why this works.
Can we make sure that, because we're going to have to move this
out into the lobby. But if there's people who are online who have questions, because we can't see if your hands are raised or anything like that. Is there anybody on?
BoardWorks.com,
You're not getting to go
send
with
me
us
an
out
email.
in the lobby. Those of you
I
online.
am keeping track of the questions online, and so there are, actually, there's a couple, there's one from Michael Mose at Terra Vesta that's on here. It's pretty fun.
If you'd like to, yeah, we have a little,
But-
we have to kind of get out of this
Yeah,
room at
and
10:30.
before we leave the room, and for the recording, and I'll address these questions when we leave, what comes next? So this was great today, but what's next?
Yeah, well, hopefully we get interest and sign up. So if we want to get this 2,000 acres on board for next planting season, because that's going to be vital to getting this project off the ground in Peoria. Our investors aren't going to invest if they don't know we can grow the crop here locally. So if I would like to gain more interest, we'll be back up here for more and more meetings, but it's really to try to get that 2,000 acres initially identified and understood that we'll have partners that'll help us grow it.
And you can work with Corey and I at the Biomass at the University of Illinois. We have something that we've developed as a letter of interest and intent. It's non-binding, but something that we can, if you want to talk with us, talk with Travis separately together, it's fine. But we can help you kind of articulate the things that you might be looking for in a contract that then indicate that interest. Travis obviously has a grower interest form. Sometimes people like to talk to their extension agent before they talk to a company, and so we're here for
Emily,
you.
can I add that it's not cheap to build one of these plants? And our investors want to make sure that we can't do our work. We can't be a processing facility if we don't have farmers, if we don't have the material. And, another opportunity, I'm not pitching or trying to sell you on anything, but there is an opportunity for you guys. And we've talked about kind of a co-op kind of a model where farmers can participate in the facility here in Peoria as well. I mean, you're not going to be bringing this, product from Huntsville, Alabama up to Peoria, Illinois to process it and make boards. It's going to come from right around here. So these are all things that, we're here to answer any questions, and we're open to a constructive dialogue on all these questions.
Thanks so much for